Chapter 30, A New Beginning. Daffodil Street 2, 4 and 6 are row buildings with polygonal 4-slope roofs. The overall appearance of gray-blue, 3 chimneys stand out. There are, of course, no lawns or gardens, no porches, and the entrance faces directly onto the street. Holding a set of copper keys, Scott of the Tinian City Improvement Housing Company opened the door. None of our townhouses have a foyer. The entrance is to the living room, with a bay window facing Daffodil Street, which gets a lot of light. Klein, Benson, and Melissa gaze into a set of cloth sofas bathed in golden sunlight, and a spacious space comparable to their previous 2 bedrooms. This living room doubles as a living room, with a dining room to the right, and the big fireplace on the left wall to keep you warm in the winter. Scott pointed with familiarity. Klein took a quick look to confirm that it was a rough open plan, with the dining and living room uncut, but away from the bay window, and rather bleak. There is a small red rectangular wooden table surrounded by 6 upholstered hardwood chairs, and the fireplace on the left wall is the same as the foreign movies and TV shows Klein used to watch. Behind the dining room is the kitchen, but we don't provide any utensils. And opposite the living room is a small guest room and powder room. Scott strode through the rest of the ground floor layout. The bathroom is divided into 2 inside and outside. Outside is a place to wash. Inside is a toilet. There are folding doors to separate. The guest room is small, but also as big as the stall Melissa is currently living in. She looked a little stunned. After seeing the first floor, Scott led the 3 siblings to the stairway next to the bathroom. Down there is an underground storage room. The air in it is very dull. Remember to ventilate before you go in. Benson nodded quietly and followed Scott up the stairs to the 2nd floor. On my left is a bathroom with 2 bedrooms on the same side. And on my right is the same pattern, only the bathroom is near the small balcony. As he spoke, Scott opened the bathroom door and leaned over so that Klein, Benson, and Melissa could look at him without hindrance. This bathroom has more bathtubs than the one on the 1st floor, and there are also folding doors next to the toilet. Although there is some dust, but there are no other dirty places, not smelly and crowded. Melissa stared until Scott walked to the next bedroom, then slowly followed. After a few steps, she looked back again. Klein is also very happy and looking forward to this, because even though the landlord often supervises everyone to clean, the public lavatory is still not clean enough, which often makes people have the impulse to vomit. Not to mention that it is easy to meet the queue when they are impatient. The other bathrooms are just like this one. One of the 4 bedrooms is slightly larger and has bookshelves. The others are about the same size, with beds, tables, and closets. The balcony is too small to dry too many clothes at a time. Scott was standing at the end of the corridor, pointing to a place separated by doors and locks. There are also complete sewers, gas pipes, and meters, perfect for gentlemen and ladies like you. The rent is only 13 sols a week and 5 pence for the use of furniture, plus a 2-week deposit. Before Benson could speak, Klein looked around curiously and said, "How much would this house cost if you wanted to buy it?" As a traveler in a big food country, the desire to buy a house has always existed in his heart. Benson and Melissa were shocked by the question and looked at Klein with monster eyes, while Scott replied firmly, "Buy it. No, we will not sell the property, only rent it. I just want to know. You know, find out," Klein explained awkwardly. Scott hesitated for a few seconds. Last month, the owner of 11 Daffodil Street just sold a similar house on lease for $300 over 15 years, which is much cheaper than renting outright, but not everyone can afford that kind of money at one go. To buy it outright, the owner's list price was $850 £850. Klein quickly began to do the math in her head. I was paid £3 a week. Benson was paid £1 10 souls. The rent is 13 sous, and if you eat well every day, you need to spend close to £2 a week, as well as the sharing of clothing, transportation costs, interpersonal communication costs, etc. etc. The most you can save a dozen sous a week, about £35 a year. £850 will take about 20 years. Even if it is only £300 in the form of lease, it will be at least 8 or 9 years. And that's not even taking into account future marriage, family separation, children, travel, etc. In a world without personal housing loans, most people should have no choice but to rent. Realizing it, he stepped back, glanced at his brother Benson, and motioned him to negotiate the rent. As for Melissa's will, just look at her bright eyes. At this moment, Klein had to close the door. Let Benson go delusion. Benson nodded with his unsilver stick, glanced from side to side, and said, Wesheld, look at other houses. The dining room here has too little light. The balcony is too small. You see, only the bedroom has a fireplace. And the furniture is so old that we moved in and replaced more than half of it. In 10 minutes, he succeeded in persuading Scott to reduce the price to 12 souls for the rent, 3 pence for the furniture, and a rounded deposit of £2. Without wasting any more time, the 3 siblings followed Scott back to the Tingen City Improvement Housing Company, signed the contract in duplicate, and went to the Tingen City notary to find a notary. After the deposit and the first week's rent, Klein and Benson had a total of 9, 2 souls, and 8 pence left over. Standing at the door of No. to Daffodil Street, each holding a set of copper keys. They could not move their eyes for a moment, and all kinds of emotions were rolling. It felt like a dream. After a while, Melissa looked up at Moretti's house and said in a low, floating voice. Benson breathed and smiled. Then don't wake up. Klein was less impressed and nodded. We need to change the locks on the gates and balcony doors as soon as possible. There is no need to worry about this. The reputation of the Tingen City Improvement Housing Company is very good. The rest is the cost of your suit, but before that, we must go to Mr. Fledge's. Benson pointed in the direction of the apartment. Home to make do with the rye bread. Brother and sister 3 went to Iron Cross Street row house there, knocking on the landlord's door. You should know my policy. No rent rears. The little Merfledge, sitting on the sofa, declared with great vigor. Benson leaned forward and smiled. Mr. Fledge, we've come to cancel our rent. So direct? Is this really a good way to negotiate? Klein listened in amazement. On the way over, Benson said his bottom line was 12 souls. Break the lease? No. We have a contract. 6 months to go. Fledge stared at Benson and waved his arms. Benson looked at him carefully, waited until he had calmed down, and then said calmly, "You should know very well, Merfledge, that you ought to earn more." Earn more? Fledge asked with interest, touching his thin face. Benson sat up straight and explained with a smile. At Woe bedroom house for the 3 of us is 5 sous for 6 pence. But if you rent it to a family of 5, 6 people, with 2 or even 3 working, salaried families, I think they would be willing to pay more than to go to a very bad place like Lower Street. 5 sous for 10 pence, or 6 sous, which I think is a reasonable price. Seeing Fledge's eyes light up and his throat squirm, he went in. And, as you must know, the rent has been going up in recent years, and the longer we stay, the more you'll lose. But I need time to find new tenants. Mr. Fledge, who inherited the apartment, was clearly thrilled. I am sure you will find it soon. You have the ability and the resources. Maybe 2 days, maybe 3 days. We will compensate you for the loss during this time, just with our deposit. 3 souls. It is fair. Benson immediately made a decision. Fledge nodded with satisfaction. Benson, you are such a conscientious and honest young man. All right, let's sign the termination. Klein looked on blankly. fully aware of Mr. Fledge's ease of persuasion. That was easy to convince. After settling the previous contract, the three siblings went to buy Klein a formal suit and began the busy move. They didn't have any heavy, bulky belongings that belonged to the landlord. So Benson and Melissa jointly dismissed Klein's idea of hiring a carriage and did it themselves, going back and forth between Daffodil and Iron Cross. Outside the window, the sun was slanting down, and a burning gold was pouring through the bay window onto the surface of the desk. Klein looked at the neatly arranged books and notes on the shelf, and gently placed ink and pens on the white table. Finally finished, he breathed, felt his stomach growl, and walked to the door as he lowered his rolled cuffs. He had a bed of his own, with white sheets and quilts, old and clean. Klein twisted the handle and walked out of the bedroom. Just as she opened the door, two doors opened opposite her, revealing Benson and Melissa. Looking at the gray dust and dirt on each other's faces, Klein and Benson burst into a smile that was as good as it got. Melissa bit her lip, gradually infected by them, and whispered a smile. The next morning, Klein stands in front of the slit-free mirror, carefully adjusting the collar and cuffs of her shirt. It consisted of a white shirt, a black tailcoat, a half-tall silk top hat, a black waistcoat and trousers, leather boots, and a bow tie. It cost him 8 pounds in all, and it broke his heart. But the effect is also very good. Klein only felt that the mirror of her book temperament is more strong, seems a little more handsome. Bang bang, he closed his watch, put it in his inner pocket, then took his cane, hid his revolver, and rode the rail stagecoach to the Rue Zotland. As he was about to enter Blackbriar's security, he realized that he had gotten used to his old lifestyle and had left Melissa alone this morning to walk to school without giving her any extra money. Shaking his head and writing about it, Klein walked into Blackbriar's security and saw Roseanne, a brunette, brewing coffee. "Good morning, Klein. It's a beautiful day." Roseanne smiled and said, "To be honest, I always wonder, in this weather, you guys wear formal clothes, don't feel hot. I know it's not as hot in Tingen as it is in the south, but it's still summer. It's the price of grace." Klein humorously replies, "Good morning, Miss Roseanne. Where's Mr. Captain?" "The same place." Roseanne pointed inside. Klein nodded through the partition and knocked on the door of Dunn, Smith's office. "Come in." Dunn's voice and tone were as deep and gentle as ever. Seeing that Klein had really changed into a nice suit, he nodded slightly and smiled with his gray eyes. "Have you thought it over?" Klein took a deep breath and replied solemnly, "Yes, I have made my choice." Dunn sat up slowly, his expression quickly becoming serious, his gray eyes deep and unchanging. "Tell me your answer." Without hesitation, Klein replied, "Fortune teller."